Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming and listening to me talk about the story of Broken Stone Winery and how we, conducted this little adventure into Prince Edward County. So our winery is family owned, and my family came to watch right now. It's Michelin and 3 teenagers and myself. We live in Toronto, and we started this part-time. The winery is on Clawson Road. We grow Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and we have about 7 acres of grapes now. So when we started with just a hayfield that we bought with 1 acre of grapes on Clawson Road. Our mission, we try to come up with a mission. I come from a corporate world way back, and our mission is to enhance people's lives by creating delicious local wines that are genuine. So genuine is kind of a concept that we have to define who we are in our business. It's being authentic, being good people, being true to the earth, being honest about what you're doing, and most of all, about being true to your dreams and your passions. So that's what for me, Broken Stone Winery is about. It's pursuing a dream and a vision, and kind of having the bravery to do it. So how did this all get started? If you go back 10 years, Michelin and I and the girls were living in Toronto. We had living in a great leafy neighborhood, and I was working downtown in an air-conditioned office and flying around selling financial data and software. Michelin, customer service for demographic software, and everything was peachy keen. But behind the scenes for me, this was just kind of a temporary job in my mind while I was kind of deciding what I wanted to do, which was something entrepreneurial, working for myself. And by temporary, I mean it lasted 20 years while I was thinking about doing something different. So I was in the sales career, and that was that. So one Christmas, Michelin came up to me and she said, "Tim, what do you want for Christmas?" I said, "Michelin, I've got everything I need or want. Don't get me anything." Well, that was the wrong answer, because Michelin's pride and joy, her secret talent, her superpower, is the ability to buy the perfect present for somebody for Christmas or a birthday or an anniversary. It just fits. So she said, "What do you want? You have to tell me, you have to give me something to go on." I said, "Michelin, I love to read. Get me a book." "What kind of book do you want?" I said, "Okay, Mich, it has to be a book about one of 2 specific things." She was kind of giving me a hard time, so I was trying to retaliate a bit. So I wanted to give her a mission. I said, "It has to be a book about a family that sells everything and buys a sailboat and sails around the world and has this great adventure for a year." Or, if you can't find that book, it has to be a book about a family that moves from Toronto to Prince Edward County and starts a vineyard. And oh my gosh, there was a book like that. So, A Fool and 40 Acres, a lot of people probably know this book. So she got me that. It landed under the tree, and I just consumed it like it was Christmas candy. And it was very compelling to me, because it kind of caught a hold of that, let's start something new in the country bent. At this time I was reading to the girls bedtime stories, and it started being the Little House on the Prairie series, right, where Pa is building a cabin out in the woods, same sort of idea. They didn't really get it, but that's okay. So from there, nothing really happened, right? It was just a book, right? What am I going to do? So business started going south right around then. I was in sales for financial data, and there was this thing called the financial crisis that was just starting to happen, and people stopped buying financial data, which was very uncomfortable for a salesperson. You're only as good as your most recent quarter. So I'm on a plane going somewhere, and I've got my stack of reading material, and I'm thinking, you know what, I probably need a plan B. This isn't looking good. So I'm thinking, what can I do? Okay, I always wanted to live in the country. I always wanted to do something kind of entrepreneurial. And then I kind of glanced down, and there's this book, A Fool in 40 Acres. And I thought, oh, yeah, a vineyard. That's perfect. That's something that I could start with limited funds on the side while living in the city and raising 3 children. Of course. Yeah, so I had to say, started making lists, do this, join that. And that spring, Michelle and I went on a wine tour in the county, self-guided, and I started retracing some of these steps that Jeff had taken, Jeff Heinrichs. And in the fall, I decided to do more intensive research, and I picked at Sugar Bush Vineyards. So Sugar Bush Vineyards is owned by Rob and Sally Peck, and they're very friendly, nice people. So, and this was earlier days for them. They weren't as busy then as they were now. So they did a lot of work in the fields. And I arrived from Toronto one morning and put my Starbucks in the holder and got out of the car and went out in the field, and it was just a nice fall day. And so I was kneeling all morning, everything getting sore, talking to Rob, and he's going, oh, so you want to start a vineyard, huh? And then I talked to Sally for a bit. She spent about 40 minutes with me, and she said, so Rob tells me you want to start a vineyard. I said, yeah, I want to start a vineyard in Prince Edward County. And she said, don't do it! It's too hard! It's too much work! Sally's very passionate. So I listened to that. I did. I heard it. But meanwhile, I'm observing that Rob is an engineer, and he works in Ottawa and does the vineyard on the side. And then I noticed they have 3 little kids, right? I think, wow, Rob and Sally are kind of like us. If they can do it, then surely we can do this. So, it wasn't very scientific, and it wasn't very logical, really, in the end. But those things kind of encouraged us to move on. So that was kind of the beginning, the seed of the idea. So I want to talk a little bit about the notion of terroir, just to tie things together. Terroir, right? Terroir. This is terroir. It's a terroir event. What is terroir? So traditionally, people think that terroir is the soil and the climate that go into making the wine, right? You have great soils here. They're sort of like the soils of Burgundy. They're strewn with limestone fragments. They're ancient glacial till. Here in my property, it's 3 feet deep, beautiful clay limestone soil, perfect for grape growing. Then there's the climate. So to make cutting edge wines, there's a school of thought that thinks you need a kind of a cutting edge climate. And we sure have that here. You can just barely grow grapes here, if at all, which is perfect for Pinot Noir, creating great Pinot Noir and Chardonnay every 2 or 3 years. So, but those things alone do not create wine. What really creates wine requires another ingredient, and that is the people and the culture of the region. So that's what I think, besides, the perfect climate, the perfect soil, the people are what really are pulling Prince Edward County together, and particularly in the early days of a wine industry, it's so difficult to start a vineyard and grow grapes that the people working together to do it were a really important factor in things starting out. And we found this as well. We had some great staff and friends and neighbors that miraculously appeared to help us along our way on this quest we had to start a vineyard in Prince Edward County. So on one of the first days that we were actually in the county, we were camping with the girls in a tent in our newly purchased property. It was just a hayfield with an acre of grapes. So there was a hill in the back, and we had bought an old tractor and sort of hid it in the trees, and there was a trailer where all the tools and gasoline and diesel cans were, and then every week or two I'd emerge from the city to come out and be the dude farmer and manage the vineyard. So those first 2 years we did everything ourselves. Anyway, we were camping as a family and having a grand old time. And suddenly, trudging across the field, come two kind of suspicious-looking men in coveralls, greasy coveralls, and they're smoking roll-your-own cigarettes. And we were actually a little bit nervous about meeting them at first. And it turned out to be our next-door neighbors. They were coming to check us out. They farmed next door and kept a close eye on their property, and they'd seen people coming and going, and they wanted to meet us. And so they did. And during the course of that day, I think Annika was playing in the mud and got stuck up to her waist and had to be lifted out of it, rescued by our neighbor Donnie, which was the first great thing he did. And so they met us. They were genuine and nice, and they parted ways. And they said, "Tim, anything you need help with, just ask, because we're there for you." And that turned out to be more than true, because I swear Donnie, the 50-year-old son, lurked in the grass and waiting for a problem to happen. And as soon as, I didn't know how to hook up the 3-point hitch. What the heck is this 3-point hitch thing? He'd pop up. "What you doing? Oh, you need to hook up your 3-point hitch? I can do that for you." "What you doing? Oh, your tractor won't start. Here, I got this wrench here. It fits. I'll fix it. It's going now." So it was time after time. It was uncanny how they kind of almost, they looked after the place for us when we weren't there. So anyway, one day when we were camping, we heard the roar of Donnie's tractor. And it came closer, and we're thinking, what's Donnie doing? And we saw it, this old Polaris tractor, a huge, greasy, monstrous, creaking machine roaring down. And there's a loader, and on the loader, there's a small building. And it gets closer and closer, and we're kind of looking at it going, what the? Anyway, he comes up, puts the loader down, and he said, "I see you're camping," right? And we say, "Yeah, and we're having a good time." He says, "Well, if you're camping, you're going to need somewhere to go to the washroom. I happen to have this outhouse here in the back field. Here it is. You can have it. We're not using it." So he had the outhouse. And that actually saved a lot. And then he went away, and he kind of looked over his head, and he says, "You got to look after your girls, Tim." So there it was, and that helped a bit for a few years until we had a real building and facilities. But the most poignant thing of all the things that Donnie did, besides, there was one other thing. He showed up with a cultivator. He said, "Here, have this cultivator. You need it. You've got weeds in your field. I found it in the back field. Cut it down to the size of your rows. It's perfect. Just hook it up. It's yours," right? Just gave me a cultivator. Great. So these things just showed up to help me on my way, and it was great. But the most poignant thing about Donnie was the day that I was kind of fixing something on the tractor. It was a brake cylinder, a very simple job. You just unbolt the old one, put the new one in, and hope it works. So I'm just bolting it on, and Donnie shows up. "Hey, whatcha? Oh, you fixed your tractor yourself. You're a real farmer." Well, I thought, wow, this is a rite of passage for me. Donnie called me a real farmer. This is great. So Norm and Donnie, great people, and it's good to have good neighbors, that's for sure. Our staff also just fabulous, and people that just randomly came into our lives. Cecil is a 61-year-old man, a local county boy, and he's out in our vineyard every day during the summer working harder than anybody I've ever seen work in my life. If I can have that kind of vitality when I'm that age, I will be very happy. One time we had to pound in a whole bunch of T-bars. So you've seen in the vineyards, or you may be familiar, one way of trellising is to have T-bars every 20 feet, I think it is, or 16 to 20 feet. And they're rammed into the ground. And the old way to do it is to take an iron pipe with handles, boom, 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 put it in. So we had 1,000 of these things pound into rocky soil. So I was going to get a contractor to do it, and the contractor didn't show up. And he kept not showing up. So I said, "Cecil, could you just pound a couple of those into the ground and, maybe get that row done while we're waiting for the contractor. And then, I don't know, I went back to Toronto for a week. I came back, and Cecil was pounding in the last couple of rows. He'd been at it all day, every day for a week, pounding in 1,000 of these T-bars. I don't know how he did it, because I know I tried. I did 20, and I was cooked for a week. So he puts that sort of energy into everything he does with us. So we're really fortunate to have a loyal employee like Cecil. The second sort of group of employees, of great people, are our young lady we met. I think it was here. Michelin met her at Terroir. And her name's Candace. Eventually Candace came to work for us in the vineyard, going from the vineyard to the tasting room. And then she recently got recruited by a winery in Patagonia, Argentina, to be their assistant winemaker, of all things. So I'm not sure if we'll get her back. But she got her mother involved, so now her mother's in the tasting room working for us as a tasting room manager. And then a couple years ago, we had a really bad year. We had just the toughest year. First, we lost our whole vineyard to frost on May 26th. So it was gone. The second thing was I lost my job. So my job was gone. I decided, well, I just can't bear to go back. And then in the fall, I had to have a surgery right at hilling up time. So I'm the guy who's the tractor driver. And I thought, well, I better not delay this surgery I need to have. What am I going to do? So suddenly, out of nowhere, Yvonne's husband, Steve, appears. And he says, Tim, you know what, I'll hill up for you. I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, I know machinery. I can do that. So I gave him a short training lesson, which went very smoothly. So hilling up involves dragging a plow behind your tractor, and it just pushes the soil into hills. And you go down the next row, and it pushes. So it goes well if the soil conditions are perfect. But if it rains a little bit, the consistency of that soil completely changes. And your tractor swerves around, things get stuck, the clay is heavier, so things break. And if the shear pins don't break, the equipment breaks. So later on, I found out all that happened to Steve. He was running back and forth to town and getting things fixed and new U-bolts and shear pins. And it took him a long, long time to get it held up. So I was oblivious to all that, and I came back, and everything was done by the time I got back. Perfect. So Steve saved our lives that year. So, so all those are people were part of this sort of fabric of the land called terroir. And there's more people who I'm not being fair to by not mentioning, but I just wanted to give some examples of some people who are really special.
Can you tell us a bit about your winery today? Like how many years you've been open to the public and the type of distribution you have and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, so fast forward to today, we opened the winery 5 years ago, and now this year we just bottled 1,000 cases. Most of our sales are through the winery store. We fiddled around a bit with the LCBO, and we just found that particular wine got sucked into their system so fast, we didn't have it anymore. So we'd like to do more of that because during the winter it's very lean times, and as a business this is something that we'd really like to make a go of. The winery itself, it's in the summers it's very busy. It's a wonderful thing to run and meet all these wonderful people from all over the place. In terms of growth over the years, I think we're almost at the size we need to be. We just want to fine-tune it and make things better. I've got a lot of good ideas for making our wine better and better. And the other thing that we are finding challenging right now is our family's kind of helter-skelter, right? I have to work so hard on this winery business, and Michelin and the girls are living in Toronto. We're together quite a bit, but we're apart quite a bit too, which wasn't the initial intention. the initial idea was to move out to the vineyard and Michelle and I to toast wine together while our little kids frolicked happily in the fields. But that's pretty clearly not going to happen. They're big kids now, so they're all in their teens and doing their special things and have their own goals and dreams, which we don't want to take away from them by yanking them out of their Toronto lives. So we're taking it gradually. In 3 years, we will probably move out here with the youngest. The other two will be off in university doing their own things. So it's kind of a family perspective of the winery rather than a wine perspective. But I think it's all going to work out. It's, you make it work. And everybody seems happy, healthy, thank goodness. And in our family, the idea is we all help each other pursue our dreams. And hopefully they can work together in some sort of massive jigsaw puzzle. But
the right size winery. You don't want to grow too big, but there's kind of that balance. And what is that for you?
That's a really good question. I think I'm still finding that over the years. Like the original business plan for the winery was very super optimistic, and what I'm still figuring out is how to get the vineyard to produce better, because we really produce great fruit, but every couple of years, right? We need to produce consistently, and we need to produce more in order to make that part work. Until we do, then it doesn't make sense to plant any more grapes, right? Because think about it, if you're losing money on 5 acres, if you double the size, you're not going to double the money you're making, you're going to double the money you're losing. So we really need to figure that out. And the winery side is where a winery makes money, not the vineyard. We want to keep growing that. But to circle around to the beginning of my answer, the original business plan was for a smaller winery than I think we really need now. And how big that is remains to be determined. But putting 3 kids through university, is a challenge that we have to face. So that might demand, a larger business than if it was just Michelin and I, right? We really need to think about the next generation and what to do with them. So I'll take more questions. Just want to kind of do a concluding statement, and that is I just want to reflect on something I noticed, and that is when you take a risk and try something new and step outside your boundaries, it really does seem that coincidences happen that wouldn't have otherwise, that help you move forward. And standing there and thinking about taking a risk, all you can see are the problems ahead of you. You can't see the luck that you're going to have. You can see the problems crystal clear, but luck is out there that's going to get you past those problems. And I don't know, I've come to believe that. And I see problems ahead, and I've got lots of hope that I'll get the luck to get through them. Anyway, that's my final reflection. Yes?
Would you say you had a lot of knowledge before starting?
A lot of knowledge? No, I'd say I had extremely little knowledge. And so some people might say that if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't have done what I did. But I probably would have done it anyway. So gathering knowledge along the way was a real challenge, and it's what I really enjoyed about this, because there's so much to learn about. Firstly, the farming. I really enjoy growing the grapes. I love that part of it, and then making the wine. Very complex. Every year, everything's different. The climate, the grapes, the wine. The challenges are always changing. But to arm myself, I made a list, including take university chemistry course, take UC Davis online winemaking diploma, join PACWA, Prince Edward County Winery Association. You know, oh, the other thing that I did was I went to taste wine at Sugar Bush a lot, and that was key because that first farming year, I would go into the tasting room, and Rob Peck would be there. And Rob Peck's a very good grape grower. And I'd go up and I'd say, hey, Rob. He'd say, hey, Tim, do you want to taste some wine? Because he just wants to sell me wine, right? And I'd say, sure. And then he'd inevitably say, so how's it going? And I'd tell him. And then I'd lean on the bar and say, so Rob, what are you doing in the vineyard right now? So he'd tell me, and then I'd rush over to my vineyard and I'd do exactly the same thing. And, you know, it was a very successful couple of years, and I'm thinking maybe I should be doing that more often still to this day. Now they think I kind of know what I'm doing. Does that help? Anybody else?
Did you have a large crop loss May 23rd, 2015 with a bad day?
You just had to bring that up.
I've been asking everybody that same question.
No, we were pretty much wiped out. We did get some Pinot Noir, but what happens when there's a frost like that, I'm just a diehard optimist. So I was running around telling the other growers who have their head in their hands, I'm saying the secondaries will push. The secondaries will push. So there's like a grapevine bud has 3 parts to it: primary, secondary, tertiary, and they're each, like, the primary is the most fruitful, the secondary not so, and the tertiary just survival mode for the vine. So I'm thinking the secondaries, at least I'll get half a crop, but no, I didn't get, and what I got wasn't very ripe because the vines had to start growing all over again. It looked like a flamethrower went through the vineyard. A couple of days later, like that morning, everything looked great because it was all frozen solid. And then it wilted in the sunshine that morning. And then it dried up because it got hot, and it turned just to ashes, and then it blew away. It was so sad. Yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen again.
So you have a 2015 that you're serving today, right? Is that from that?
Well, I brought in fruit I had to buy Niagara fruit, yeah. It's called diversification.
Yeah.
Because we don't have consistently performing vineyard, just due to climate. So we need to, like, if I could buy grapes from 4 or 5 different vineyards, that would be great, because then you have a solid supplier, right, to make your wine every year. The other way around that is to make a whole bunch of wine one year and then you have wine the next year, but that's expensive because you're holding inventory, right? Yeah. So it's a trick. I think we can get it consistent. And as a wine grower association, we're all still learning, and there's some really promising things on the horizon. So instead of hilling over like we do, which I think is absolute insanity, but it works, so I do it. But it's so much work to tie down your vines and hill them up and unhill them, and then prune them in the spring. So this geotech covering, a white felt cloth covering that you can cover the vines with in the winter, seems to have a lot of promise as a better technology, because you don't disturb the soil or harm the vines or your equipment hilling up and de-hilling all the time, which is very hard on people, machinery, and the plants. But it works. But it works.
Did you try some of it last winter?
No, I want to. Yeah. There's a couple of 1 acre trials out there in the county, but I wasn't in a position to do it last year. Hopefully this year. Hopefully we can do a half acre. But everything takes time, and you got to proceed cautiously. Like if I bet the farm on geotech, that would be probably an unwise move, right? Because we would run up against a lot of learning issues very quickly, and it might not work. It seems to work according to trials around the county. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you sitting through that. And just leave you with a parting thought. Follow me on my blog and drink Broken Stone Winery wine.
Thanks, Tim.